I was dancing for 2 days during the Black Lives Matter movement, and on the second day, whenever I would stop to take a rest from dancing, a lot of students would come up to me and say that they liked the dancing a lot, and they asked me, please don't stop. So then it became part of my routine because I realized at that time that I could use it as a way to meet a lot of students and then either tutor those students or talk to them about environmental science or something like that. So it became like my way to make contact. And especially, as you may know, I don't know, in my generation we had a term called the generation gap, which is that sometimes young people didn't associate with older people very much. So I realized this could be sort of like a way to bridge the generation gap because I was doing something that young people were interested in, which was surprising to me actually. One student asked me, why don't you feel self-conscious? And that's very simple. The students maybe can't understand this because when I was young, I would have felt self-conscious. When you get older, you reach a point where you realize that as long as you're not doing anything offensive or anything that would bother anybody, there's no reason not to have self-confidence because truthfully, as you get older, you just don't care anymore. But the other thing I really like to do is I do a permaculture project, which is agriculture, a type of agriculture. Really, I should say I started many years ago. Even when I was young, I always liked landscaping. And as I got older, also pretty many years ago, I used to do a lot of landscaping with ornamental plants like trees, shrubs, and perennial plants. And I still do some of that now, but gradually over time, I made the transition to growing plants that are edible or useful in some way. Okay, so as I already mentioned about these kind of clothes, of course, the green is an obvious symbol of environment and plants and nature, and the tie is an obvious symbol. The brown colors are not such obvious symbols, but sometimes the real benefit is that when people see my clothes and they don't know what they mean, then they ask me. Because I found college students, and even in town I've met older people, middle-aged people, and even older people my age who see my clothes and think, well, that's actually very unusual because the clothes are formal in shape, but the colors are something that a businessman would probably never wear a green shirt if they were the CEO of a company or a businessman. So they wonder, why is this person wearing formal clothes of an unusual color that doesn't usually occur in formal clothes? And this is what we used to call, when it's an inanimate object, like something you put on your coffee table, we used to call this a conversation piece. But what has happened is my clothes have become a conversation piece. And I sort of did that on purpose because, again, it's a good way to meet people. Many times when I meet people, it's because they approach me and ask me a question first, which is much easier than trying to go up to people and introduce yourself to them. When I was young, very young, like when I was a boy, or I would say around the time I was a young teenager, around 13 years old. But anyway, I always liked nature, even before I knew that was biology. But my background was kind of unusual because I always liked nature and art. So when I was young, actually, one of the things, for example, that I used to do a lot is I used to draw a lot of pictures of birds. And when I first went to college in Pennsylvania, my undergraduate, the first 2 years I was actually an art major because I knew I liked nature and art, and when I first went into college, I thought I wanted to do art. When I was in college for about 2 years, I was taking biology electives and I was doing well in them, so that gave me the confidence. I changed my major to biology because it was a more practical thing to get a job and things like that. But even now, as people can see, I still like these two things equally.
I'll take you back to the start.